I sincerely believe that banking establishments are more dangerous than standing armies, and that the principle of spending money to be paid by posterity under the name of funding is but a swindling a futurity on a large scale, spent like a syllable gobbling whale. The ideas of the ruling class are in every epoch the ruling ideas, i.e., the class, which is the ruling material force of society, is at the same time is its ruling intellectual force. I'm spitting. I mean, syllables like grass, a horse of a class, which has the means of material production at its disposal. A rap whirlpool has control at the same time over the means of mental production, so that thereby, generally speaking, the ideas of those who lack the means of mental production are subject to it. The ruling ideas are nothing more than the ideal expression of a dominant material relationships. The dominant material relationships grasped as ideas. Politics is the art of the possible, the attainable, the art of the next best. Rhymes in a mess. Every election is determined by the people who show up a dub, rub a dub, scrub a dub. In conclusion, the arms of others either fall from your back, or they weigh you down, or they bind you fast. Rap. The most dangerous people in the world are not the tiny minority and instigating evil acts, but those who do the acts of them. For example, when the British invaded India, many Indians accepted to work for the British to kill off the Indians who resisted their occupation. So, in other words, many Indians were hired to kill other Indians to behalf of the enemy for a paycheck. Raps aspect. Today we have mercenaries in Africa, corporate armies from the Western world, and unemployed men throughout the Middle East killing their own people. Razzle-dazzle, purple, snapple, I hustle the devil, spittle, or bedazzle and people from other nations for a paycheck to act without conscience. But for a paycheck makes anyone a dangerous animal. A paycheck makes anyone a dangerous animal. The devil would be powerless if he couldn't entice people to do his work. So as long as money continues to seduce the hungry and the hopeless, the broken, the greedy, and the needy, there will always be war between brothers. Rapper forever. Knowledge, prowledge, a pilgrimage. We find that at present the human race is divided into one wise man, 9 knaves, and 90 fools out of every 100. That is, by an optimistic observer, the 9 knaves assemble themselves under the banner of the most knavish among them and become politicians. The wise stand out because he knows himself to be hopelessly outnumbered and devotes himself to poetry, mathematics, or philosophy, while the 90 fools plot off under the banners of the same time of the 9 villains, spitting, never ending. According to fancy and to the labyrinths of ships about spitting malice and warfare. It is pleasant to have command, observes Sancho Panza, spitta forever. Now stop spitting never. Even over a flock of sheep, and that is why the politicians raise their banners. It is moreover the same thing for the sheep, whatever the banner, spitter forever, never stop spitting, never. If it is democracy, then the 9 knaves will become members of the parliament. If fascism, they will become party leaders. Of communism, spitting forever, commissars, spitter. Commissars, nothing will be different except the name of the fools will be still fools. The knaves will be leaders. The knaves still leaders, and the result still exploitation. As for the wise man, his lot will be much the same. Under any ideology, under democracy, he will be encouraged to starve to death in a garret. Under fascism, he will be put in a concentration camp. Under communism, he will be liquidated, spitting, never ending, speaking. In my opinion, our healthcare system has failed when a doctor fails to treat an illness that is treatable of whirlpool syllables. When widely followed public figures feel free to say anything without any fast checking, it becomes impossible for a democracy to think intelligently about big issues. Have an issue, here's a tissue. If the worker and his boss enjoy the same television program and visit the same resort places, if the typist is attractively made up as a daughter of her employer, if the owns a Cadillac, if they all read the same newspaper, then this assimilation indicates not the disappearance of classes, but the extent extent to which the needs and satisfactions that serve the preservation of the establishment are shared by the underlying promotion population. Pick a leader who will keep jobs in your country by offering companies incentives to hire only with their borders, not one who allows corporations to outsource jobs for a cheaper labor when there is a national employment crisis. Choose a leader who will invest in building bridges, not walls, books, not weapons, morality, not corruption, intellectualism, not and wisdom, and not arrogance, intellectualism and wisdom, and not arrogance, stability, not fear, and terror, peace, not chaos, love, not hate, convergence, not segregation, tolerance, not discrimination, fairness, not hypocrisy, substance, not superficiality, character, not immaturity, transparency, not secrecy, justice, not lawlessness, environmental improvement and preservation, not destruction, truth, not lies, rhymes, all day and all night. I'm smoking ice. I'm wise, spitting never ending all night. We are all born to love people and use things. Unfortunately, we grow to love things and use people. Purple, snapple, razzle, dazzle, bedazzle, hustle, devil. I'm scamming, hustle, and cul-de-sac spent rapping again. Till the off pop of my head, I said. The science, the art, and the jurisprudence, the chief political and social theories of the modern world have grown out of Greece and Rome. Not by favor of, but in the teeth of the fundamental teachings of early Christianity, the which art, science, and any serious occupation with the things of the world were like despicable, spitting, conspicuous, spent never ending. I said again and again till off pop of my head. I said again, spitting lyrics. I said again and again till off pop of my head. Civilized man longs for the illusion of barbarism. Even his culture fulfills this need by adopting it outer trappings, or he will be seduced by his first contact with a culture that does bum rum dum da 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 dum la 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 na 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 na. It is your duty, he said, to recover your country, and not by gold but by the sword. Thou who lives by the sword shall die by the sword. You'll be fighting with all you love before your eyes, the temples of the gods, your wives and children, the soil of your native land scarred with the ravages of war. Span I roar, and everything which honor and truth call upon you to defend or recover or avenge again and again till off the top of my head. I said again and again the lyrics. I said till off the top of my head. You are what you do. If you do born stupid, monotonous work, spitting it hurts. The universe hurts. Spitting all this knowledge, it hurts. The universe, chances are, I have infinite knowledge of the universe, it hurts. And knowledge is truly a burden that's hurting. Chances are you'll end up born stupid and monotonous. Work is much better explanation for the cretinization all around us than even such significant moronizing mechanisms as television, education, rapid equation, annihilation, invasion, rap invasion. The real enemy is the totality of the physical and mental constraints by which capital or class society or statism or a society of the spectacle exproperates, spend rapping all day, exproperates everyday life, the time of our lives. The real enemy is not an object apart from life. It is the organization of life by powers detached from it and turned against it. The apparatus, not its personal, is the real enemy, but it is by and through and everyone else participating in the system that domination and deception are made manifest. A totality is the organization of all against each and each against all. It includes all the policemen, all the social workers, all the office workers, all the nuns, all the op-ed columnists spitting into the abyss of my infinite syllable pit, all the drug kingpins from Medellin to Upjohn, all the all the situationists, spittingness, never ending. I said, spin, the infinite lyricist. Since the early days of your youth, we have been conditioned to accept that the direction of the herd and authority anywhere is always right. Rhymes all day and all night, spitting the infinite lyrics and rhymes till the end of time, again and again and again and again. The echoing lyrics inside of my head till off top of my head. About the decline of geography and academia, the decline of geography and academia, of Anthenia, is easy to understand. We live in an age of ever increasing specialization, and geography is a generalist discipline. Imagine a poor geographer trying to explain to someone at a campus cocktail party, or even to an unsympathetic administrator, it's better forever, administrator, exactly what it is. He or she studies geography is Greek for writing about Earth. We study the Earth, right, like geologists. Well, yes, but we're interested in a whole world, not just the rocky bits. Geographers also study oceans, lakes, the water cycle. So it's like oceanography or hydrology, span on a monopoly, floppity, and the atmosphere, meteorology, climatology. It's broader than just physical geography. We're also interested in how humans relate to their planet. How is that different from ecology or environmental science? Well, it encompasses them, aspects of them, but we also study the social and economic and cultural and geopolitical sides of sociology, economics, cultural studies, policy. Some geographers specialize in different world regions span. Oh, all right. We have Asian and African and Latin American studies programs here, but I didn't know they were part of the geography department. They are not long pause span. No. So what is it that do study them? Spent rapping never ending again and again till off pop of my head. I said again and again. You don't know you don't know you're wearing a leash if you sit by the peg all day. Span away goes today. This is a paradox of public space. Even if everyone knows an unpleasant fact, saying it in public changes everything. One of the first measures taken by the new government, by the new Bolshevik government in 1918 was to make public the entire corpus of Tsarist secret diplomacy, all the secret agreements, the secret clauses of public agreements, etc. There are two. The target was the entire function of the state apparatuses of power. I got the power. I'm the rhymer forever. I'm spent beyond Shakespearean, Einsteinian, Luciferian, reptilian. There's room for words. Oh, objects other than words, other than last words. There's room for words and objects other than the last words. Spent, haven't you heard? Bird is the word. I'm flipping it to you. Infinite. The art of those who govern consists above all in the science of employing words. If you do not want to be lied to, then need to stop following politics, spitting this. This is a paradox. This is the paradox of public space. Even if everyone knows an unpleasant fact, saying it in public changes everything. One of the first measures taken by the new Bolshevik government in 1918 was to make public entire corpus of Tsarist secret diplomacy, all the secret agreements, the secret clauses of public agreements, etc. There too, the target was the entire function of the state apparatus of power. I got the power. I'm the rhymer forever. I've spent never ending forever. The advertising industry's prime task is to ensure that uninformed consumers make irrational choices, thus undermining market theories that are based on just the opposite span of flopita. But groups of prudence, were critics, and that is the heart of the problem. If you are a pundit, and you seem so smart, where you are telling the president what he did wrong, this is mostly BS spent again and again. There is no such thing as a political science, but there are tendencies so strong that they might as well be called laws of nature. I'm spitting the rapture. Poverty is what you see in the eyes of a child living in a squatter camp. Spent again and again. The ruling power is always faced with the question in such circumstances, what would you do? Whereas the opposition is not obliged to take responsibility or make any real decisions. Spitting, the president is at liberty both in law and conscience to be as big as a man as he can. His capacity will set the limit, and if Congress be overborne by him, it will be no fault of the makers of the Constitution. It will be from no lack of the constitutional powers on its part, but only because the president has the nation behind him, and the Congress has not the chief instrumentality by which the law of the Constitution has been extended to cover the facts of the national development has of course been a judicial interpretation. The decisions of the process of formal amendment of the Constitution has made so difficult by provisions of the Constitution itself that has seldom been feasible to use it, and the difficulty of formal amendment has undoubtedly made the courts more liberal, not to say lax, in their interpretation than they would otherwise have been. The whole business of adaptation has been theirs, and they have overtaken it it with open minds, sometimes even with boldness and a touch of audacity, spent elastically. Electricity, the old theory of the sovereignty of the state, which used so to engage our passions, has lost its vitality. The war between the states established as at least this principle that the federal government is through its courts the final judge of its own powers. I got the power. I'll never stop rhyming forever. And we are impatient of state legislators because they seem to us less representative of the thoughtful opinion of the country than Congresses. And we know that our legislators of spitter of the rapture do not think alike, but we are not sure that our people do not think alike. Spitting all night and all day. I'm smoking the ice. I'm spitting the rhymes. Any polis which is truly so called and is not merely one in name, must devote itself to the end of encouraging a goodness. Otherwise, political association sinks into a mere alliance. But we are only termites on a planet, and maybe when we bore too deeply into the planet, there will be a reckoning. Who knows what there might go? Faces politics preys on the human's frailty that makes our own suffering seem bearable. If we know that those we look down on are being made to suffer more, well, there if I go, which is flowing from the Napoleon shore, bent lyrics forevermore. If you think human rights is a political matter, what you think does not matter. If you think if you think human rights is a political matter, what you think doesn't matter. Wraps on a silver platter. I've rocked forever. Democracy, once the voice of the people, has become a demo of craziness, and not freedom. It echoes with noise, not wisdom. A chorus of chaos, drowning out reason, spit never ending. You think taxing the rich will magically fix everything? It won't. The money would still have to go through hungry politicians until we introduce proper training, testing, and licensing, and politics, like in medicine, to winnow out incompetent candidates. Nothing will change. Raps I arrange lyrics again and again to off pop of my head until we introduce proper training, testing, and licensing. And politics, like in medicine, to winnowing out like incompetent cannabis. Nothing will change. Rapper lyrics rearranged. All governments are a facade. All politicians are merely actors. In a civilized world, citizen is the leader. Rapping never ender. Obsolete as the profession of the world leader. Spitter forever. If you want to be an actor, don't go to film school. Become an intern to some politician. Rapping and spitting. Beyond the question, the fallen soul of religious freedom continues to bleed beneath the altars of power, where the sobbing of accused blasphemy victims fall upon deaf ears, spent in drinking this beer. The process of charm. Charm is the most likely scenario of societies similar to human bodies seek renewal and change, where apps and lyrics rearranged. Civil service is the main engine of democracy. We just got to make it corruption proof and efficient. Politicians are professional gaslighters. In a truly free market society, persuasive private power of the kind exposed in the last several chapters should not exist. All capitalists and institutions should be to a greater or lesser extent subject to the overwhelming power of the market mechanism. Instead, we find a world in which private institutions are able to dominate and control markets while also dominating and controlling workers and manipulating entire states. Capitalism means ruled by capital, not markets. Spit it, I spark it like a rainbow in the dark. The infinite layers begin to start. Estimates suggest that 7.6 trillion. Estimates suggest that 7.6 trillion of wealth is hidden in tax havens all over the world. The international finance sector acts as a circulation system for criminal money acquired through drug trafficking, terrorism, piracy, human trafficking, proliferation, and tax evasion. When we look at the international financial system, we don't find a free market paradise. Instead, we find incredibly powerful institutions of both the public and private sector, shaping the conditions faced by everyone else. Financial institutions dress themselves up in liberal trappings of the market, yet capture the old sovereignty of the state, all the better to squeeze the social body to feed their own profits. Spit it, I got it. Yet all this power is held without any democratic accountability. Yet all this power is held without any democratic accountability. Politicians, technocrats, and financiers work together to decide everything from the interest rates we pay on our loans to who gets what when a state flies files for a bankruptcy, when a state files for bankruptcy, if everyone had a say and determine how these rules were made and enforced, rather than just a privileged few, we live in a very different world. As it spins and it whirls and it swirls and it twirls. We usually think that we usually think of empires as violent undertakings. That as France, Fanon observed in the 1960s, that the process of conquering and governing a colony is by definition violent, but in the context of global capitalism, empire has a more expansive meaning. Capitalist empires are not simply the states capable of winning the most wars. But capitalist empires are not simply the states capable of winning the most wars. They are the command centers of the capitalist world system. Their corporations are the biggest, largest, and the most powerful multinationals extracting profits from all corners of the globe and sucking them back to the imperial core of what would there go, spent forevermore. Their financial institutions are some of the most important nodes in the networks of global finance. The priorities of their government are forcefully communicated to and sometimes enforced upon less powerful states. In fact, at the global level, it is much easier to see the equivalence between economic and political power. That is domestically the power of U.S. business abroad is maintained through as international order that prioritizes the interest of U.S. capital promulgated by the U.S. government and its allies. The power of U.S. finance rests on a central role played by the dollar and as the global reserve currency, which is a function of the American military, political, and economic might. American military power, meanwhile, stems from and helps to reinforce the power of a web of military contractors, weapons manufacturers, and research hubs that provide the expertise and equipment needed to maintain its supremacy in certain parts of the world. As in Iraq, after its invasion, the U.S. government has rules through private corporations, and Halliburton spent its hurting empire is then more than formal colonization. It refers to all the processes through which the world's most powerful capitalist institutions plan who gets what at the level of the world economy. Throughout history, this imperial power has often been exercised through horrendous acts of violence that have warped the development of the entire societies for decades. But today, it is often averted, exerted in far more covert ways. It's been all night and all day, such as through the secretive system of international courts or international financial institutions imposing rigid conditions on countries trying to access emergency lending, spitting and rapping, never ending about spitting original subject, spitting about the punishment which the wise suffer who refuse to take part in government is to live under the government of worse men, spitting again and again off the top of my head. What you might ask has happened to powerful forces of the creative destruction, barriers to entry, whether regulatory barriers, the cost of investment, or anti-competitive behavior by the corporations themselves allow monopolistic firms to retain their power, by preventing new firms from entering the industry, and big tech large incumbents, spitting again and again, I'll pop off my head, incumbents, police, the so-called kill zone, and their marketplace by hoovering up or squashing any potential competitors. Google, Amazon, and Microsoft have between them collectively bought over 436 companies and startups in the past 10 years, and regulators have not challenged any of them. Spit them, rap them, anthem up, spit them. I'll never end, and again and again till I'll pop off my head. I said, and I'll memorize the lyrics again and again. The main takeaway here is that corporations. The main takeaway here is that corporations and political as well as economic entities within the corporation relationships are shaped by the social division of labor. The fact that some own the things we need to produce commodities, while others are forced to sell their labor power as an input to production merely in order to survive. The corporation came into existence to formalize this unequal and exploitative relation between worker and boss, while insulating owners from risk. A corporation is a capital personified. Rhymes. As corporations have become bigger, they have gained more power over both the markets in which they operate and the workforces they control. Complex corporate hierarchies have institutionalized the power imbalance between workers and bosses, meditated by a large class of professional managers. Ultimately, these corporations have become sovereign actors within our society, capable of delivering punishment, governing life, and making and breaking law, and much the same way as states. Away goes the day as I spit all night and all day, again and again. Away goes the day as I spit. Away goes the day all night and all day. The wealthy can quite easily convert their cash into political influence, and politicians and bureaucrats are quite capable of turning their political influence into cash. In the UK, as in most other capitalist countries, the links between the public and private sectors has become so close that it is hard to know where one ends and the other begins. But these privileges are not available to everyone. For people like Lex Greenstill, the British state appears extremely porous. He can write to politicians directly, requesting help and support, as well as hiring former civil service and even former prime ministers to do his dirty work for him, but to organize like unions that lobby on behalf of workers, not to mention people trying to petition the government themselves. The British state seems impenetrable. The different versions of state power experienced by more and less powerful actors tell us something about what the state actually is, rather than a fixed set of stable institutions. The state is a social relation with a capitalist itself, spent again and again on reps on the shelf. I begin to melt. My face is melting. I'm spitting at random rapping. And yet, as we have seen in this chapter, state power can be exercised in many ways, some of which are so subtle that they are barely even noticeable, that these less noticeable forms of intervention are more effective ways for the powerful to pressure others to conform to their will. Nudging your subjects to obey you is far more effective than forcing them to do so at the barrel of a gun. Even if a gun can occasionally be useful, where a nudge falls, changing the way your subjects think about themselves and about the state itself is an even more effective way to govern them. And no neoliberal era spent on the hiatus. I spit forever. Stop spitting never. Governance is everywhere, but government is nowhere. The invisibility makes the exercise of power much harder to resist. Spitting this and all the infinite lyricists. I'm the infinitist, the infinite lyricist, the freestylist, the verbalist. There was one problem with this tactic. The U.S. claimed to be a democratic and anti-imperialist nation, but it had spent much of the early 20th century encouraging other empires to grant independence to their colonies. U.S. anti-imperialism was, of course, entirely self-interested and mostly directed toward other states. After all, how could the U.S. corporations dominate the rest of the world if whole swaths that were guarded by imperial powers? I got the power, rapper forever, rhymer, speaker. Ultimately, the U.S. state took it upon itself to ensure that no part of the world could close its doors to international investment. The desire to keep a world open to capital rather than over accumulation or struggle for resources is what explains so many of America's imperial escapades spent all night and all day, way for decades. In recent decades, spent all game centuries, spent never ending for eternity and infinity. Yet newly independent states were told they would have to adhere to free trade policies if they wanted to catch up with the rest of the world. These countries were fed the lie that Britain and America had grown rich through free trade, and that if they only opened up their markets to international competition, they would too. Instead, these states found their national economies were dominated by corporations that had been protected by imperialist nations, now preaching the benefits of the free market. This was the imperialism of free trade, rapping all night and all day. The fusion of economics and politics fusion of economics and politics is a critical part of this model, and is something that every early liberal theorist missed. States consistently spent for eternity, never endingly. When the world cries blood, backbone ought to spark thunder. When the world cries blood, backbone ought to spark thunder. Spent forever. Powerful paranoia is politics spent. But on the contrary, he has been conscripted into service by the adherents of varying political outlooks, eager to unfurl his banner over their causes that enlightenment thinkers such as should have found found and a spokesman for political liberty. That 19th century Italian patriots regarded him as an impassioned advocate of Italian unification. The Bolsheviks nailed him. The Bolsheviks hailed him as a Marxist Leninist outrider that a late 20th century feminist academic found in his writings anxieties spent for eternity anxieties about the female threat to male power. These and other interpretations suggest that Machiavelli's thought is strangely malleable to any number of diametrically opposing ideologies and approaches. There you go. Have sophisticated vocabulary, used document, education, my psychological and common best validating and library understanding completely adamant. My name is constantly accurately and coherently. Romanian neutral but anti-substitutarianism, political scientist, spin infinitist. I'm a political scientist, freestyle artist. Been into the abyss, my infinite syllable mix. Infinite lyrics into the abyss, my infinite syllable mix. My infinite knowledge of political science. I'm infinite. I've spent all night and all day. Away goes the day. Once again, I'll pop off my head, spitting the never-ending lyrics. I said again and again. The infinite lyrics. I said memorize them again and again till off pop of my head.